Operators of small vans don't usually care about the provenance of the designs they're presented with, only whether they're competitively priced, practically shaped, capable of carrying stout loads and come supported by a peace of mind warranty. Nissan's Townstar seems to tick quite a few of those boxes. It's combined Renault technology, sharp looks and strong after-sales support to create the Townstar, available in petrol and full EV forms. It might well be the best small van you've never heard of.
Nissan has all the right technology to produce a sales-leading small van, but somehow it never has. Models like the Kubistar and the NV250 were rare on British fleets. The NV200 did a bit better, latterly in eNV200 full electric form, but it wasn't the breakthrough product that Nissan's commercial vehicle arm had hoped for. The Townstar model, launched in 2022 though, this van might just be. It shares an awful lot with its close cousins, the Renault Kangoo and the Mercedes Citan, and like those other two small LCVs, it can be had in both petrol and, as in this case, in full electric forms, which means that the Townstar has been able to replace both the brand's old diesel NV250 small van and its rather more successful electric eNV200 model all in one hit. Obvious Stellantis group rivals like the Peugeot Partner, the Citroën Berlingo, the Fiat Doblo and the Vauxhall Combo Cargo can offer similar power plant flexibility, but they can't match this Nissan's long 5-year warranty, nor can combustion segment rivals like the Volkswagen Caddy Cargo and the Ford Transit Connect. So this Townstar is definitely worth a second look. But why would you choose this van over its identically engineered Renault and Mercedes clones? Well, you're going to need the industry's most comprehensive review, the Car and Driving Road Test, to find that out. Until this Townstar model arrived, small Nissan vans were almost all diesel powered, but those days are nearly over, and this compact LCV enthusiastically embraces the new cultural zeitgeist. You can still get it in combustion form, but only with a 130 PS 1.3 litre TCE petrol engine, not that 1.5 litre diesel that still accounts for the majority of sales of the two models that share this Townstar's engineering and design, the Renault Kangoo and the Mercedes Citan. Both those two LCVs, like this Nissan, also come in full EV form, but both Renault and Mercedes acknowledge that it'll take time for full electric sales in this segment to really ramp up. Nissan, in contrast, expects the majority of Townstar sales to be of the EV version, and that's the one that we're trying here today. All of which leads us to think that maybe this Japanese brand is jumping the gun just a little here, and that's something underlined by trickling Townstar sales at the time of our test. The company certainly ought to put a little more effort into promotion of this van in petrol form, because it's actually quite a good little combustion package with a 6-speed manual gearbox and a healthy 240 Newton meters of torque, which eases you smoothly through the ratios on the way to an irrelevant top speed of 114 miles an hour. The high-set gear lever falls easily to hand, and it's complemented by light, feel-less but fairly accurate steering, which has an even lighter town mode for easier urban use. The brakes are strong and the ride quality is well judged, but it can get a little choppy when the vehicle's unladen, although it is better in longer wheelbase form. All models have great forward visibility, courtesy of the extensive windscreen and that truncated bonnet. If your business is ready to consign fossil fuel to history though, Nissan wants to sell you this full battery version. Like all electric vehicles, the Townstar EV is quite urgent off the mark, although actually the power output figures from the front axle mounted electric motor, 122 PS and 245 Newton meters of torque, aren't that much different from the fossil fuel model. Fortunately, the electric motor's power delivery is quite linear, so it won't constantly be jerking your cargo backwards and forwards. The rest to 62 miles an hour sprint time is dispatched in 14 seconds with the L1 body shape, although as usual with full battery LCVs, it runs out of puff noticeably the further up the rev range you go. That is a little slower, by the way, than rival Stellantis Group EV models. When the 45 kilowatt hour battery is fully charged, this variant can offer up to 183 miles of range or 269 miles on the city cycle. For reference, that is about 50% more than its predecessor, Nissan's old ENV200. The Townstar EV has 3 provided levels of selectable regenerative braking. You knock this gear lever to the right and then you move it up and down to move between those settings. There's B2, which is the default one. On the highway, you should shift the big gear selector into the B1 sailing setting, and that limits energy harvesting to the minimum for unimpeded cruising. In town, however, you'd activate the fiercest B3 brake setting, which slows this van noticeably off throttle, although not to the extent that you get from the e-pedal system that is championed by some of Nissan's other electrified models. As with the petrol model, there's also an eco mode to stifle the throttle and maximize range, but in the EV version it muffles power output more considerably, reducing it by half to just 60 horsepower. So you really won't want to engage that outside the city limits unless you really are running low on charge. We mentioned ride quality earlier. This EV Townstar fares a little better than its combustion counterpart here. That's thanks to the weight of the battery pack mounted beneath this van's CMF CD platform. That also helps handling around the twisty stuff, where this Nissan feels a little more engaging to punt around than the Stellantis Group rivals. Impressively, the braked towing weight figure of 1,500 kilos isn't affected by a switch to the EV powertrain, unless you opt for the EV crew van, which can't tow at all. As for refinement, well, there's a bit of wind noise at higher speeds, and there is some electric motor whine under high acceleration, but overall it's a little better than those rival Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citan and Fiat EV van models too. The cabin is a little less boomy than it is with those rivals, presumably because of extra sound deadening. At town speeds, the legislation required artificial sound effects kick in to warn unwary or disabled pedestrians of your approach. Nissan has installed the Canto sound that it developed for its passenger cars here. This pulses more loudly when the Townstar's reversing. If you're prepared to spend big on your Townstar EV and stretch right up to the Techno Plus trim level that we have here, you'll get this LCV embellished with the brand's semi-autonomous Pro Pilot setup. This is Nissan's version of the Renault Kangoo's traffic jam and highway companion. Now this blends lane departure warning and lane keeping assist with intelligent adaptive cruise control. This is really useful in low speed traffic queues, and the idea is that the system can take care of most of the driving duties for you on longer trips, although of course EVs actually don't tend to be used very much on longer trips. We did try this Townstar on one of those and found that the forward-facing radar that runs Pro Pilot is prone to get all dirtied up in mucky conditions, and that prevents it working. Another possibly unnecessary high-tech feature that you get with this Techno Plus trim level is a hands-free parking system which slots you into tight bays. All you have to do is switch from reverse to drive and vice versa, and it does it all the time. You can watch the performance via a rather poor quality 360-degree surround view camera system. This too, though, is adversely affected by the required sensors griming up, in which case the system won't work. Is technology like that really necessary on a sensible compact van? Well, answers on a postcard, please. Downtown, this little Nissan van should fit right in. Its sharp front-end looks supposedly reflect the company's Ariya full electric car. At a glance though, it's more likely you might mistake it for the Renault Kangoo cousin model it shares all its engineering with. The Townstar is quite a bit bigger than Nissan's previous entrant in the class, the NV250, which was also Kangoo based, with the body length of this L1 standard version up 204mm to 4,486mm, and the long wheelbase L2 body shape up 244mm to 4,910mm. From the side, the outline of the Continental passenger MPV version's glasshouse is clearly evident above the waistline. Unfortunately, though, even with this top spec trim level, no lower side rubbing strips feature, which might lead to a few unwelcome paintwork scrapes. There's a single 16-inch wheel size, usually based around steel wheels with plastic covers, although with this top spec model you get diamond cut alloys. Base Vizier spec variants without an electronic parking brake get old-fashioned drum brakes at the rear, and at that entry point in the range you also do without an offside loading side door too. And at the front, well, the petrol-powered Townstar looks a bit different to this EV version because it requires a radiator grille to admit cooling air to the 1.3 litre petrol engine. This full battery-powered model substitutes that with a front-end blanking plate, an aerodynamic front shield incorporating a smart Kumiko pattern, and a central Nissan brand badge behind which resides the plug socket. LED front fog lights and power folding mirrors feature with most trim levels, but you only get indicator repeaters in those mirrors with this top spec trim. That's not something we'd really want actually, because it'll require higher replacement costs if those outer edges get smashed or scraped during congested urban use. At the rear, where the Nissan badge is proud and centre, there are smart light clusters with a curved illuminating signature, along with lower corner reflectors and the usual upper stop light. The left-hand door here has been made wider to improve access in tight spaces. Time to take a look inside. Inside it feels pretty car-like, with a basic dashboard design which is user-friendly, although it has lots of hard plastics broken up by a faux aluminium dashboard panel. It's not perhaps quite as solid as the cabin of a rival Volkswagen Caddy, but it's certainly better finished, with smart touches like silver bezeled climate dials and shiny black inserts on the steering wheel and around the gear stick. And our key change over the old NV250 model is that you can replace this single passenger seat here with an optional two-person bench instead. The need to borrow fittings from the current more upmarket feeling Renault Clio Super Mini has clearly helped here, as has the need to provide an interior fit for embellishment by the Mercedes version of the same design, the Citan. You view the binnacle gauges through a confident looking 3-spoke wheel which is lifted from the Clio, with identical multifunction controls, including a useful extra stalk for the audio system. Digital instruments haven't reached the combustion part of the van segment yet, but you do get them on this EV version, although only with the top spec Techno Plus trim level we're trying here, and that's one that hardly any Townstar folk will actually choose. This features a 10-inch configurable combi meter screen, which is also found on the Zoe van, and as there, it's not particularly customizable. It merely displays key information like your speed, your range, and your current audio selection. You can't configure this screen to show GPS mapping, and for some reason a third of the display is dedicated to an image of a leaf. We don't really understand why that is. Other versions of this Nissan have conventional analog gauges separated by a 4.2-inch TFT colour display, which has vehicle, audio, nav, eco and drive assist sections selectable via steering wheel buttons. Now, using these you can select features like a digital speedo, trip data, a compass, tyre pressures and meters for measuring horsepower, torque and MPG. And you can alter the intensity of the instrument panel lighting. What about the central infotainment monitor? Well, this is an 8-inch colour touchscreen audio system setup straight from the Renault parts bin, and it's fitted to all Townstars bar those with the very meanest standard of trim. Only the top 2 spec levels though get this display fitted out with navigation. There are no useful physical buttons surrounding the screen, but you do get a vertical menu of touch-sensitive shortcut buttons up the left-hand side, one of which has to be volume because there's no physical controller provided for that around the frame. As is the current trend with monitors of this sort, your starting point for use can either be a customizable split screen. Now here we've got a sat-nav map, and that's accompanied by phone and audio sections. Or you can choose to start your perusal of the various menus from the icon screen with nav, radio, music, phone and apps sections, the latter being a potential storage point for your photos and your videos. Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, that's included too, although not wirelessly. There is also a car info section. Now that houses this van's useful driving eco tools for increasing frugality. What else? Well, the upright driving position facilitates easy entries and exits, and the seats, which come trimmed in hard-wearing dark fabric and get blue trim and leatherette highlights on most models, are reasonably supportive. Plus the driver's chair is, like the steering wheel, height adjustable. Unlike in quite a few of the obvious rivals, you can't have a folding passenger seat or a load-through hatch into the cargo area, but if you do opt for that two-person passenger bench that mentioned earlier on, the central part of that seat folds away when it's not in use, and that creates a really useful office table. The glove box looks big, but it can't be locked, and on further inspection turns out to be halved in size by the fuse box. Still, on the plus side, the buttons and dials here are really easy to use with a gloved hand. You're favoured with individual overhead reading lights, and you do get an awful lot of different cabin stowage areas, which together offer 44 litres of interior stowage space. We like this lidded compartment on top of the instrument binnacle here, which incorporates two USB-A ports and a 12-volt socket. To the left of that is another useful open compartment big enough for an A4 clipboard. While above the passenger, there's also a spacious overhead shelf. You get a slim central stack. This is a cubby embedded into the center stack ahead of the gear stick, with a big open tray further down. Behind that, there are twin cup holders next to the handbrake, and on the base trimmed variant, that will be of the old-fashioned sort. You get this electronic handbrake switch further up the range. Further back is a deep optional lidded bin which doubles as an armrest. It doesn't, however, seem very securely fixed in place. The slim door bins incorporate 1 litre bottle holders, and there is a ticket clip in the driver's sun visor, although not on the passenger side. Plusher models have the dedicated smartphone holder here by the front quarter light window, and that's for hands-free navigation or making phone calls. There is also a wide view mirror which is mounted into the passenger side sun visor, and that improves your blind spot vision. That would also be handy if you're going to install a baby chair using the ISOFIX mounting points on the passenger seat. At the time of our test in autumn 2023, petrol versions of this Townstar were priced from just over £20,000 on the road, with 4 trim levels: Visia, Accenta, Tecna and Tecna Plus, taking prices right up to around £24,000. There's quite a chunk more to pay for the full EV version we're trying here, and that comes with the same 4 trim levels, even with the £2,500 government plug-in grant subtracted from the mildly off-putting asking price. As we filmed, customers were still looking at a starting figure of around £30,000 for the base Visia version, with prices ranging all the way up to around £35,000 for the top spec Tecna Plus variant that we have here today. You can get those figures down further by including the TfL scrappage scheme grant in your calculations. Add that to the government plug-in van grant we mentioned earlier on, and you could take a total of £12,000 off the cost of a Townstar EV. None of this really masks the fact, though, that EV pricing here is way above the level being asked for Nissan's previous EV contender in the class, the ENV200, and that, along with increased segment competition, is going to mean that this Japanese maker's previous dominance in this part of the market will be a distant memory. The ENV200 claimed 63% of the UK's electric van market between 2019 and 2020. If Nissan is going to grow this EV model's market share, it's going to need a wide range of body styles, and that's why a crew van body shape with a foldable rear seating row is offered on the Tecna version of this full battery model. There's no crew van option on the petrol version though. But with both powertrains, you can, as usual in this class, pay a bit more to graduate up from the standard short wheelbase body shape, that's badged L1, and get yourself an L2 long wheelbase version, which adds an extra 426 millimeters to the length of this van, up from 4,910 mils as here to 4,488 mils, and an extra cubic meter of carrying capacity, up from 3.3 to 4.3 cubic meters. Whatever kind of Townstar you're interested in, you're going to need to know how the prices that Nissan's asking here compare to obvious rivals in the small van segment. Well, in answering that, we're going to base our observations on prices as they were at the time of filming in late 2023. So things may have changed a little by the time you view this film, but what we're about to say here will give you a really good value perspective as a starting point. Now, we should start with a comparison with the two models which share all the same engineering here, Renault's Kangoo and the Mercedes Citan. As you might expect, in both petrol and EV forms, the Kangoo is priced almost identically to this Nissan, but it comes with a shorter 3-year, 100,000 mile warranty. Comparing the combustion Townstar against the Mercedes, well, that's rather more difficult because the Citan only comes with diesel power. So an e-Citan costs around £1,500 more than a Townstar EV. What about other rivals? Well, there aren't too many to choose from if your focus is on a combustion-powered Townstar, because quite a few of the fossil-fueled vans in this segment still only come with diesel power. But you can get a Fiat Doblo or a Ford Transit Connect that does fuel from the green pump, and that will cost you much the same as a Townstar in both cases, or for a fraction more, a petrol-powered Volkswagen Caddy Cargo. As for full battery rivals to this Townstar EV, well, you'd save a bit by choosing a Vauxhall Combo Electric or a Citroen e-Berlingo, and a Toyota ProAce City Electric, that'll cost you a fraction less too. But a Fiat e-Doblo or a Peugeot e-Partner, well, that'll cost you about £2,250 more than a Townstar EV. Strangely, at the time of this test, neither Ford nor Volkswagen had yet got around to developing EV-powered small vans. If, having considered all this and got a favourable deal on a new Townstar, your decision may be finalised by a strong standard of equipment. So is that what Nissan is offering here? Well, let's take a look. Even if you stick with base Vizier trim, your Townstar will come with automatic headlights and wipers, heated and electrically adjustable door mirrors, and a 3-button folding key with selective opening and a super locking feature. You also get a near side sliding loading door, and providing you avoid the crew van body style, there's a spare wheel too. Inside, with all Townstar models, you'll get manual air conditioning, there's a front bulkhead and a height adjustable driver's seat too. There is also a wide view mirror mounted in the passenger side sun visor, and that will improve your blind spot vision. Vizier trim though doesn't include a center screen, but you do get a DAB radio with Bluetooth connectivity, plus a USB socket and an aux input port. The brand also offers a Nissan Connect Services smartphone app, and that offers a growing range of services, and that includes door-to-door navigation. With all versions of the EV model, the brand includes a Mode 2 10-amp domestic charging cable, plus another cable of the Mode 3 Type 2 variety to go into a garage wallbox or a public charger. The Townstar EV also comes with a heat pump so that the passenger compartment can be warmed using ambient air, and that reduces energy drain from the climate system in colder conditions. And there's a bespoke Nissan Connect Services app for the EV version, which allows you to to remotely set charging times to benefit from cheaper off-peak tariffs, or to preheat or pre-cool the cabin so you don't have to use the climate fan energy doing that once you start off. Bear in mind though that a Visia trimmed Townstar EV can only charge up to 11 kilowatts. With the plush trim levels, you'll be able to charge at up to 22 kilowatts. So consider that before you make too many decisions about saving money on trim spec. Whatever their powertrain preference, we reckon that most Townstar customers are going to want to move on swiftly past Visia spec and start their range perusal at least from mid-level Accenta trim, if only to get features that are key and missing from the base version, stuff you might have hoped would be fitted right across the range. Here I'm talking about things like an offside loading door, cruise control, reverse parking sensors, autonomous braking of course, load area lighting and a central infotainment screen too. The 8-inch colour touchscreen audio system incorporates Apple CarPlay and also Android Auto for smartphone integration, and Accenta trim also includes LED front fog lights, automatic climate control, an alarm and the electronic parking brake that brings with it proper brake discs rather than old-fashioned drums on the rear wheels. In addition, the black dark grey upholstery that you get with Visia trim, well, that's replaced here by a slightly more appealing grey black cloth combination lifted by blue trim and a leatherette finish. Further up the range, it's really a question of a few extra niceties being added, which will appeal to owner drivers. Techno trim adds navigation for the central screen, keyless entry, front parking sensors, a rear camera and a smartphone holder. And this top Techno Plus version builds on that with 16-inch diamond cut alloy wheels, a leather stitched steering wheel, gloss back mirrors with built-in repeaters, an auto high-low beam system for the headlights, an intelligent all-view Monitor 360 surround view camera system, and an intelligent park setup which will automatically steer you into tight spaces. At this top level in the range, you also get an expanded level of camera and radar based drive assist equipment too. We're going to brief you on that in a few moments. If, as here, you happen to have chosen the EV drivetrain with Techno Plus trim, you will additionally get a 10-inch instrument screen in the cabin there, along with a heated steering wheel, and Nissan's semi-autonomous Pro Pilot setup that blends lane departure warning and lane keeping assist with intelligent adaptive cruise control. On to options across the Townstar range. Now, as we told you in our design section earlier on, a key change over the old NV250 model is you can replace the single passenger seat with an optional 2-person bench. Beyond that though, well, small business owners likely to be driving this Nissan themselves may want to add a few extra niceties, things like 16-inch alloy wheels and a center console storage with an armrest. You can also add a rear view camera and an alarm too, if your chosen version doesn't already have that, of course. Whatever Townstar you select, it's very possible that you'll have to pay your dealer some extra for your chosen paint color. That's because there are only 2 standard shades. They're both solid and they're available across the range: Urban Grey and this Mineral White here. There's a further Blaze Red shade available if you avoid the 2 Techno trim levels, and beyond that you'll be offered a choice of 4 more extra cost metallic colors. What about practical options? Well, as usual with the van, we'd suggest you add ply lining to protect the load area from scuffs and dents. Obviously, you can add a tow bar of the swan neck sort with a 13-pin socket, and you can also add an aluminium roof rack that can transport up to 100 kilos of equipment. Plus, there are passenger compartment rubber mats available too. We really can't imagine why you'd want the optional velour ones, or for that matter, the chromed mirror caps and door handles that Nissan also offers. With this EV version, you might want to specify a home AC charger too. On to safety. Now, Euro NCAP awarded the Townstar 4 stars out of 5 when they tested this in 2021. Issues with its pedestrian recognition system apparently dragged the score down. We are continually disappointed to note that the advanced camera safety features that you now get fitted in virtually all passenger cars really don't make an appearance as standard in most vans, and they really don't appear as standard in all versions of this one either. As standard standard, you only get the basics. There's a driver's airbag and the e-call system, which is now mandated on all new European vehicles, which will advise the emergency services of your GPS position if the airbag inflates in an accident. Included in the price, and Nissan does also throw in hill start assist, a tyre pressure monitor, side wind assist to keep the van stable in crosswinds, and if you have a tow bar fitted, trailer sway assist. What's changed in recent years is that most of the camera safety features that you do find in a modern car of this size can feature on plusher variants of vans like this, and no fewer than 20 systems like that can potentially be fitted here. If you do have a Townstar fitted with the 8-inch colour touchscreen audio system monitor, what you've got fitted will be shown on a selectable driving assistance screen. So avoid base trim, and this van gets an AEBS, Intelligent Brake Assist autonomous braking system, and you can alter its severity to early, standard or late. Now AEBS incorporates intelligent forward collision warning. Now that keeps an eye on the distance to the vehicle that's in front of you. Now when this system detects a sudden deceleration ahead, it gives you an audible and visual warning to slow down. On this top Techno Plus version, Nissan further adds blind spot detection with intervention assistance that alerts you to vehicles in your blind spot, and if necessary it'll steer you away from them. Plus, Techno Plus trim also includes driver attention alert, traffic sign recognition, and the auto high-low beam headlight system that we mentioned earlier on. As we also said earlier, if you choose a Techno Plus EV model like this one, you'll also get lane departure warning and lane keep assist. So, which Townstar is going to suit your business? Well, first you're going to need to select your favoured size, either this standard L1 body shape with 3.3 cubic metres of space, up from 3 cubic metres with the old NV250 model, that is class competitive, or the alternative L2 long wheelbase version, which has 4.3 cubic metres, up from 4 cubic metres in the previous long wheelbase NV250 variant. As for payload, well, if that's important to you, you might want to think twice about this EV electric version, because it's slightly restricted there with this L1 standard body shape to 500 kilos compared to 689 kilos in the combustion version. An L2 long wheelbase Townstar EV could carry up to 702 kilos compared to up to 770 in the combustion version. Those restrictions are due to the extra 200 kilos that the EV model carries about courtesy of the drive battery, but that's not really an excuse, because rival Peugeot, Citan, Vauxhall and Fiat Stellantis Group small EV vans can take around 200 kilos more in their short wheelbase forms. If you ordered this EV variant in crew van form, payload falls further to 604 kilos. The crew van offers 2.1 cubic metres of load space with the rear seats in place, or 3.1 cubic metres with them folded. So let's take a closer look at practicality across the Townstar range. Now, as we told you in our design section, this left-hand door has been made wider to improve access in tight spaces. There is the usual clip on each of these black door hinges to allow you to open each door wider from 90 to 180 degrees, although unlike on a larger van, there's no option to fold them right back along the sides of the vehicle. If you're lifting things in yourself, you'll want to know the loading height, which is 634 millimeters. Both body shapes can squeeze in a pair of standard Euro pallets thanks to a generous 1248 millimeters between the wheel arches, which all Townstars share. It's 1570 mils from wall to wall. The rear entrance aperture here is 1115 millimeters tall by 1256 mils wide, narrowing to 1196 mils just above the tail lights. The loading length is 1810 millimeters in the L1 version, this one, or 2230 mils with the L2 body shape, which has a slightly lower loading sill height of 613 mils. As usual in this class, there's no option of a high roof body shape to extend the ceiling height. That's 1215 millimeters with the L1 version and 1229 with the L2. Rooftop bar fixings are provided for those who want a traditional outside ladder rack, and you can take up to 100 kilos on the roof. Right, let's take a look at side loading practicality. All Townstars get the usual near side door, but you only get this offside one as well if you avoid base Visier trim. At least with all the other trim levels, you get 2 sliding side doors with the short wheelbase body style. Some rival Stellantis Group small vans restrict provision of an offside side door like this one to their long wheelbase variants. The side door width aperture on this L1 model is 615 millimeters. It's 831 mils on the L2 model. That latter width allows the L2 variant to admit a Euro pallet through the side door. In both cases, the aperture height is 1060 millimeters. In this L1 short wheelbase model, there are 6 floor tie downs with 2 more at the back on the side and up to 10 in total on the L2 long wheelbase version. Nissan hasn't forgotten a 12-volt socket back here either. That's provided at the back on the left there, and it's a boon for tradespeople who regularly use power tools. You'll want to consider load area protection. Now, the usual ply lining kit is available here to guard the load area from scuffs and dents. And finally, there is the usual full height bulkhead, although this one is curved and that does eat into the cargo space a bit. Disappointingly, this can't be had with a useful load flap through to the cab, the sort of thing you'll find in most segment rivals. And on continental left-hand drive Townstar models, they also get a clever vertical split folding mesh bulkhead. As for running costs, well, if you need a combustion model, you might be a bit disappointed by Nissan's decision not to offer the kind of diesel engine that you can get in this design in either a Renault Kangoo or a Mercedes Citan. A power plant of that sort, well, it would return a combined cycle fuel reading of over 53 miles per gallon. The best that a petrol-powered Townstar can manage is 41.4 mpg on the combined cycle for the L1 body shape, or up to 40.4 mpg for the L2. You might hope that a Euro 6D compliant petrol engine of this sort would be a bit cleaner than a diesel, but in terms of CO2 emission stats, well, there really isn't very much in it. A petrol Townstar returns up to 157 grams per kilometre in L1 form, or up to 158 in L2 guise. All combustion versions do get the usual stop-start system to cut the engine when you're stopped in traffic. What about service intervals? Well, for a petrol Townstar, they're every 2 years or 18,000 miles, whichever comes first. For this EV version, it's slightly different, with the first service required after either a year or 12,000 miles, and the second one at either 2 years or 24,000 miles. It's then every 24,000 miles or every 2 years. With the petrol version, there's a section on the screen between the instrument dials which tells you when an oil change is due, and that same screen actually can also show a real-time MPG meter. To get somewhere near the quoted WLTP rated figures with the petrol model, or indeed with this EV version, you'll need to drive with a fair degree of restraint, and that means regularly activated the dash mounted eco button, and that suppresses throttle use by a massive 50% in this EV model. If you have the 8-inch central screen fitted in the cab, then that monitor's car info section includes a really useful driving eco section with further tools to help your frugality. It gives you a regular eco score out of 100 for each journey, and there's a screen graph showing your recent scores and efficiency. There's also a section with eco coaching tips based around general pointers, and then specific ones on acceleration, gear change and anticipation. Now, you won't be using these much because they generally turn out to be rather self-evident observations. I'm talking about things like don't leave the engine idling, stay at a steady speed, and change up gears sooner. If you're interested in this EV model, you want to know about charging. Now, be aware that with the base Visier trim, this Townstar EV can only charge up to a meager 11 kilowatt speed. For a home, wall box or public charger, that means a charge will take just under 4 hours or 7 hours with a more common 7.4 kilowatt garage wall box. Most Townstar EVs, though, are going to be purchased with one of the 3 plusher trim levels available, and that will allow 22 kilowatt AC charging capability, which at the time of this test you couldn't get with rival Stellantis Group electric vans, and also 80 kilowatt DC rapid charging. That's a bit less than the 100 kilowatt Stellantis system. That'll mean that using a 22 kilowatt charger, you'll be able to fully replenish the 45 kilowatt hour battery in about 2 hours, while a 0 to 80% top up from the right DC public rapid charger will take just 39 minutes. You'll have to bear in mind that the price gap between petrol and electricity has narrowed considerably in recent times, and as a result, if most of your charging is of the rapid DC public kind, you might find that the savings you get in opting for an EV van aren't quite as great as you might have initially expected. All Townstar EVs come with 2 charging cables, one for home wall boxes and public charging points, the other for a standard 2.3 kilowatt domestic plug socket. That'll require over 13 hours of charging time though. All Townstar EVs also come fitted with a heat pump. That'll preserve battery life in really cold conditions. Now, we gave you this EV model's driving range figure in our driving section. That's up to 183 miles or up to 269 miles on the city cycle. To give you some class perspective on that, the rival Stellantis Group and Toyota small EV vans manage about 20 miles less than that on a single charge. That's despite the fact that they use slightly larger 50 kilowatt hour batteries. Impressively, to help you get somewhere close to the quoted range figure in very cold conditions, Nissan includes a heat pump as standard on the Townstar EV. That's a feature which is often an expensive option on rival electric models. Now with this, heat is taken from the air around the vehicle to warm the cabin, so there's no need to expend battery energy with the climate fan. The heat pump system works best when the ambient temperature outside is between minus 15 degrees and plus 15 degrees C, a common range for the cold seasons in most European countries. You can also precondition the cabin before you arrive to start driving. That's using the Nissan Connect Services smartphone app that the brand provides for free. Insurance groups are 28E for the combustion version and 29E for the EV. As for residual values over 36 months and 30,000 miles of use, independent experts expect a petrol model to retain 57% of its original value. Soberingly though, for this EV version, that figure plummets to just 37%. Where this Townstar differs from its Renault Kangoo counterpart is in terms of the peace of mind you get after purchase. In place of the meagre 3-year, 100,000 mile standard warranty you get with a Kangoo, Nissan includes a much better 5-year 100,000 mile package, an extended deal that you have to pay extra for with the Renault, and also one that's 2 years and 40,000 miles better than the Stellantis Group warranty that's offered in Vauxhall, Peugeot, Citan and Fiat rivals. Now that warranty also covers genuine parts and accessories across the same duration. It gives you 5 years of roadside assistance too, and it's fully transferable. This EV version gets its own 8-year, 100,000 mile battery warranty. In that period, Nissan guarantees that the lithium-ion battery that's used here won't fall to below 70% of its charge capacity. If it does, it'll be replaced or repaired. Now across the Townstar range, you get a 3-year paintwork warranty and a 12-year anti-corrosion guarantee. At first glance, the Townstar is merely a clone of its Renault and Mercedes design stablemates, but take a closer look. Here you do without the smoky diesel power which primarily characterises both a Kangoo and a Citan, and you do without the mediocre 3-year warranty that those models come with too. Nissan's replaced that with a much more favourable 5-year deal. Despite that, this Japanese brand is going to have to work hard to get this Townstar onto business choice lists, but if it can, and companies can be persuaded to try it, the sales proposition here looks strong. Payload and carriage capacity both look very class competitive, as does the driving range figure for this EV model, which on this test has proved to be a very complete, if considerably more expensive, replacement for the ENV200 predecessor. Nissan does need to address issues with short wheelbase body style payload and base spec charging speed though. Otherwise though, this is a pretty complete product which looks quite sharp and is backed up by a dealer network more eager than most competitor brands to make a good impression on the van buying community. It all adds up to a proposition that really might reward those prepared to look beyond the obvious segment candidates in their search for a small LCV.